So, women. I think we can all agree women are pretty cool, but you know who takes that to the extreme in kind of the creepy way sometimes? Metalheads. And honestly, I'm just gonna be real with y'all, I think this issue is a lot more multi-phased and multifaceted than people give it credit for, because like I said in my metal stereotype video, it's very easy to sort of boil down metalheads to these just gross incels that are just gross in general. But today's video is going to be going over metal's weird fixation with female frontwomen. You know, something that kind of just grinds my gears a little bit, or at least perplexes me, is I want to emphasize and hammer home the point that it's almost always just the front women. It's always vocalists. You usually don't see this sort of attention given to, say, guitarists or drummers that happen to be in bands. Surely it does happen, but it's always to such a lesser degree than the attention that a band like Spiritbox gets, or Ginger, or Nightwish, or Arch Enemy. And in this video I'm going to attempt to go over some of the reasons that metal just has this fascination with female front women, and why I personally think a lot of it happens. And I'm going to split this up into 3 categories. And while the optics of it are a little sloppy, considering that with any variable comes so much categorization and millions of possible outcomes, I'm just going to make it 3 because I think that that's where the vast majority of people are going to fall. And that goes the incel, the fascinated person, and the Yas Queen Slay. Let's go with the Yas Queen Slay first. I think that there is a solid group of people that I have observed in the metal community, either through comment sections, forums, reviews, whatever it may be, that genuinely just like seeing the representation of women in metal. It's a demographic that is oftentimes overlooked, and I think a lot of that comes from the strange mistreatment of women in the metal niche as a whole, and just how it's approached in a lot of ways, and just the lack of representation in big name bands to where it is such a male-dominated niche when you look at the biggest bands on the totem pole. When it comes to the food chain, there are plenty of fantastic female-fronted metal bands, but you don't hear about them nearly as much as you're ever going to hear about Anthrax, Megadeth, Metallica, Slayer, Motorhead, all of these big bands, System of a Down, Linkin Park, these massive bands that are household names. And oftentimes another thing that I have noticed is a lot of times when you see these bands blow up, that sort of relevancy fades after a little bit. The initial credibility and the initial shock factor that a lot of people get, it just sort of shimmers away. Now, that's not to say that the platforms don't stay, because there are still a ton of people that love and fucking adore Spiritbox and Ginger and Nightwish, but comparatively speaking, with some of the intrigue that happens when they first burst on the scene, you can genuinely notice statistically just a decrease in the hype and the buzz that you hear in the metal sphere about them, unless they just drop something that knocks the socks off people. But the Yas Queen Slay group, they pretty much love to see these female-fronted metal bands because they like to see the representation of women in metal. They either like to fight against the niche itself, or the stereotypes, or just it's a change of pace and a breath of fresh air to see a woman be able to kick ass in metal. Honestly, I think this group is a little weird. I think this is probably like the most harmless group of the 3, because they're the people that are just pretty much egging it on, but by the same token, and I will get into my issue with another category here in a minute, I think that the major issue with this group is you are pretty much categorizing and putting women in a box in metal, and further incentivizing this stereotype and just niching them down within a niche to where, oh, it's a woman, so we have to support this differently solely because it's a woman, instead of looking at it as, is this a good musical project, or what is this musical project doing that I can get value from? Which honestly should be the question you ask yourself, whether it's a woman or anybody fronting a metal band or just a band in general, but unfortunately a lot of people like to make the big part of it the gender. And a segue, like I said, another issue I had with another category. We'll go into another one right now. And oh boy, let's talk about the fascinated people. You want to talk about categorizing and putting women in boxes? I think there's a very rampant issue of that when it comes to this group. These are the people that you will see swarming like fucking hornets around any new band that has a woman frontman, and just swooning over them because they are so different from what they have evidently just thought that metal should be. And a big pet peeve I have with a lot of bigger YouTube channels in the metal niche, and I'm not going to call anyone out, but literally making videos solely designed of like the best women guitar players, the best female vocalist, whereas you're not necessarily seeing people categorize things as the best male vocalist, the best male guitar players. It literally is just the best guitar players or the best vocalist. And these fascinated people oftentimes will be like, wow, a woman can do these death growls or can do these screams, or look at how this woman is able to shred on a guitar, she is so impressive. And this becomes less about the music once again, more about categorization. And you could see this happen with Spiritbox when they first burst on the scene. Long before Eternal Blue came out, they blew up with the song Holy Roller, and it was a very heavy song, a very well-made song, and a lot of people that were swarming around it, it was less about the music to a lot of people and more about Courtney LaPlante, people being attracted to her, people thinking that she was like the best thing since sliced bread solely because she was this woman that had very dynamic and diverse vocals. Whereas when you're listening to like a male-fronted metal band, the first thing on your mind isn't, oh, this is a man singing, this is a man growling. You judge it based on comparing it to other vocalists, which I think is what it should be. And this is just an issue that I have a lot of times with modern language, and that is the categorization where you just have to add something in to describe something that doesn't need to be there in the first place. If you are trying to describe like a vocalist, you shouldn't have to say best in the female vocalist niche, because you're just outright comparing women in a different way than you would compare a man. And I understand that the genders have different vocal styles, absolutely, it doesn't matter, but by the same token, I'm just going to say this: if we really want to niche it down like that, you could say that about ethnicities, and this would become a whole lot more of a fucking PC issue if that's what the fuck we're gonna make it about. I am very anti-PC, but I can say that if people were doing, you know, the best black vocalist, the best black metal vocalist, the best Hispanic metal vocalist, yeah, that niche would be good for building up the representation, but it's also very tacky because you're outright putting that ethnicity in a box and basically saying we're only going to define you by this ethnicity and try to compare you to people within your own ethnicity, and it becomes this fucked up microcosmos where it just all muddies into this pool where everyone is in a little segregated little box that we put them in. And one thing I want to make clear, that's not to say you can't appreciate someone that is new and fresh and a breath of fresh air, and that's not even to say that you can't compare female vocalists or make lists about female vocalists. I think that would be an awesome idea to do, but by the same token, if that is the only thing that you are defining a vocalist's talent, is basing it solely on the women's field, I think that's where it starts to become an issue. And the final group, the incels. Plan on making a video soon. I don't know when it's going to go up, but it's literally going to be about metal sexism, or if metal is sexist, just as a general topic of discussion. And I will say that the incel category is the one I could probably talk about the most because it's the most complex, but simultaneously easy to understand somehow. The metal incels are exactly what you would think. They're the ones that just have a chip on their shoulder because their heart has been broken or they haven't gotten pussy in their life, and so they're just going to take it out on the world by being gross to women. This goes for a lot of the people that worship these bands that have extremely sexist lyrics, the people in like gore grind and porno grind that make just sexually obscene lyrics and just gross lyrics towards women or just in general, which a lot of that is tongue-in-cheek, a lot of it's just on the nose, and it is kind of funny at times, but unfortunately there is a large group of people that like female vocalists, and I'm just gonna say it, because it's a girl with tits doing metal vocals. They can blame it on something else, they can try to make it about something else, but at the end of the day, you can pick these people out from a litter as much as you want because they stick out like sore thumbs. Similar to how a lot of pop artists get focused on their looks rather than their talents a lot of times by people, the looks of a female vocalist in metal oftentimes gets looked at as the prime source of their intrigue, of their interest to quite a few people. And the funny part is, I get it, I know, the age-old saying, sex sells, but by the same token, if they are not outright doing anything that is trying to be sexually provocative, and you're just choosing to make it sexually provocative solely because it's a woman, and I would hold this same standard to a woman doing it towards a man, I think that's just meh. If you're that sad and lonely and pathetic that your only reason for listening to a band is because you think that the lead vocalist is attractive and you're fantasizing about it while you jerk off into your shampoo bottle for the third time this week, I think that's an issue. And that's just some of my thoughts about the general weird fixation on female front women in the categories that I put them in. And there's obviously a lot more, but those are just the ones that I'm going to talk about here. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this topic. Leave them down in the comment section below. I can't wait to hear them. Otherwise, be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is. My name is Jay Morris, and I'm signing off saying farewell.